Christine Fisher is a mom I'm looking forward to introducing you to. She has 3 adult children and lives in upstate New York with her husband. And she is a writer who just published her 3rd book, as well as weekly posts on her blog, Hope to Inspire You. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay. I'm so glad you're here. So that was a very high level bio, told us what you do, but tell me a little bit more about your family and life in New York. Like, did you grow up there?
Yes, I grew up in New York State here. Again, it's upstate, so not near the city.
Right. 2 different worlds.
Right, yes. Yes, always lived here. And the same with my husband and his family. Since he was born, they were always around here. Yes, I have one child now that lives in Florida, so my oldest. And then I have a local daughter that's local, and then the youngest son is finishing college in New York as well. So
Okay, excellent. Any grandchildren yet?
no.
Okay.
The youngest just got engaged, so we'll probably be married in 2023. So
Oh, that's exciting. Well,
yes.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, today we're going to talk about something which is a little less strategic than a lot of the conversations we often have here on This Mom Knows. But we're going to talk about seeing God in the ordinary things. Now, I was introduced to you initially through our mutual friend, Mary, and she describes you as someone who is looking for God in the mundane things of the everyday, which I think we would both say are the ordinary things, right?
Right.
So tell me a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. For me, just seeing God, I see God's presence everywhere. Like, I think we can, if we have the eyes of our heart maybe open more to it. I first probably realized that mostly when I was growing up, when I would go to the beach. Like, I just remember even at a young age, I would feel God's presence at the ocean there, just, on the shore, and think about the vastness of the ocean and seeing the sky. And so the last few years, especially, I think I've been more in tune with that. And like seeing him in nature is one of the ways I see him most. Seeing just the beauty of the sky, of the sunrises, the sunsets, the trees, especially in the fall time here in upstate New York, where, we have the beautiful colors. And, but then I think we can also see God in others, maybe the person that holds the door open for us, when our hands are full of groceries and whatever. And I think we can join with God in prayer many times throughout the day, just seeing somebody and maybe think they could use a prayer, just Lord, bless that person with whatever they need.
Yeah. So you mentioned like opening the eyes of our heart a little bit, and you talk about seeing things in a new light too. And so, is this on par with sort of an aha moment, or is this more like, when you go to buy a car and suddenly you see that model everywhere, but you hadn't noticed it before because now you're in tune with it?
Mm-hmm. I hope that that we're able to incorporate those moments in our lives, that God will use them to change us little by little, to be more aware of his presence and how we can reflect that presence to others, as we see others also doing for us, in our lives.
So it can be a significant, memorable moment, or it can be sort of a gradual, oh, I didn't even realize this was happening.
Right. Yes. So I guess a combination of both.
Gotcha. Okay. And so is there, let's see here, thinking how to word this in a way, but is there a way to nurture that, or is that start with a simple prayer, or is there a practice that you have for trying to become more in tune with seeing where God is around you?
I think maybe for me, like it has a lot with being more still, like be still and know that I'm God. Um, but I'm more of an introvert, so that's probably easier for me than some
Right.
people. Um, but just taking time alone with God, which I really probably didn't start much until the pandemic in 2020. And I've just seen the fruit of that in my life now, so I would start going because then I started working at home for 2 years. You know, so being home all the time, I wanted to get out, to get out of the houses when we couldn't go anywhere or do different ministries or anything.
That's right. We always want the opposite of what we have, right?
Right. Yes. So God kind of used that, I think, to draw me more in, so I would go daily to near one of my churches and walk around. Well, actually, I first started sitting in nature. There was a little prayer garden there with a cross and some benches and like bricks and everything. And it was just so peaceful, even though it's right kind of in the city near a main street. But I would just go there and sit there and I would see like three birds, remind me of the Trinity. I would see shadows of a cross on the one wall there, so God kind of drew me really into his presence there, and then taking that out from nature more to people and, in our daily lives.
Yeah. That's excellent. I chuckle when you say you're more introverted and someone else might not find it as easy to sit and be still, because I went to a retreat that our friend Mary led, and her quote selling point was that you would have like 5 hours of silent solitude in the afternoon, and half of us were petrified and half of us were like, oh, that sounds lovely.
Right.
So yes,
I understand. Yep.
I was in the petrified camp, by the way, but
Okay.
so, well, once they kind of get this glimmer, when they start to notice and observe and they start to see God, and I'm thinking at first it's like evidence of God, right, in nature. But then, like you said, there's those reminders like the Trinity. So how do you take that and how do you embrace it in such a way that it starts to take root and grow and kind of push out the things that we believed before, or those untruths, those lies we think about ourselves, or those old patterns that didn't help us see God, but just sort of see ourselves in situations.
Mm-hmm. I guess mostly through prayer, maybe, like, and trying to be open to a simple prayer, maybe for God to help you to see it and for it to take root in you. I think maybe the more you do it, the more easily it is, and then it will take root.
Okay.
Quicker.
So how do you reinforce it? Do you journal like a gratitude, things you saw? Do you like, how can you reinforce so you don't just go, oh yeah, I noticed that? Because if you're like me, which you may not be because I'm much more like go, 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 go. But I will think of something and I'll go, oh, wow. And then 3 minutes later, I can't tell you what that, I can just say, I had a great thought and I don't know what it is. So how do you train your mind to continue to remember and look for these things and see these patterns?
Well, I'm probably a little different, but for me, yes, like I don't journal, but actually I do, but I don't. I don't for personally. Well, my journaling is my website.
Okay.
And that's where I write about like my aha moments or something that strikes me. And so like through my writing, I get to share that to help me process my faith, so all those things are like just little events that God brings to my mind, that are special aha moments, and that if I can share that with somebody else and it would help them see something different, then it's all worth it, but that's actually how I remember those moments, because then once I write about it, it's with me and I can always go back to it. So I guess journaling would be a good thing, like for somebody that's more of an extrovert or going, doesn't have as much quiet time maybe.
Right.
But yeah, I think that would be a great way, and then you can always reference those moments. Like, even if you just jot a little something down at the time, because I need to do that more, like just, while I'm thinking of it, just jot it down. And then you could always, write more about it later.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Those key things to trigger the memory.
right.
Well, speaking of people who don't have a lot of time, that's moms, and especially moms of littles.
Right.
And the thing about moms of littles, especially that season of motherhood, I think, is that there is a lot of the mundane, and things that we sort of disdain, actually, diapers and the endless bottles and the sink always full of dirty dishes and the chores never ending. So, what would you tell a tired mom who's mired in the mundane? How would you help her to see God's presence, goodness, and grace in those very um, seemingly endless, tiring moments?
hmm Yes, like I remember those days. Were definitely a more difficult, time-consuming period, in my life as well. Um, I think the best we can do at those times is maybe just say a short prayer, even like "Come, Holy Spirit." When you're in the middle of it, especially maybe if you're gonna feel like you're just gonna explode, from everything. I think like a short prayer, you know, and maybe God will help you see like the face of Jesus in your little one, like
Mhm.
because they're a child of God too, and um, you know, um, maybe a short walk in nature, like especially during the times that are really rough and you just need to get out.
Mhm.
But I guess I'm thinking like prayer is a great one,
Yeah.
because we can do that no matter what we're doing. And sometimes I think it's a big help just to reach out, a quick text to a friend, if you're in the middle of a struggle, and, could just use an extra prayer or two, like just knowing
Yeah.
that there's somebody else that's caring and will pray you through it, I think is a gift to us.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because sometimes when you're not in the middle of the mire, you see things differently and you can put a spin on it that you can't see when you're in the middle of it. Like, hey, your very energetic child, that's the future star quarterback, and you're nourishing him and whatever, So I think
Right.
sometimes you can encourage with by seeing something differently than someone else and
Right.
sharing that with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So so we've talked so far about like personally learning this perspective, but um I know that you've instilled this in your kids or tried to pass this on to them as well and make this sort of a family culture, a signature of who you all are as fishers. So tell me what this looks like and how you did that.
Um, like for me, I guess the main thing would be that I've always feel like one of my gifts is helping and serving others,
Mm.
like even in the simple, just behind the scenes. I don't want to be in the limelight or anything. So I just think that was important. So I had heard a sermon when my youngest was 1.5, so my kids were 1.5 to 8 years old,
Okay.
and I just felt like convicted, or inspired that it would be nice to do a family ministry
Mhm.
together. So I had known our church youth group had gone to this one particular church to help, usually once a year. So I got the courage and called there and got a hold of somebody that, paired us up with this wonderful older couple that their children were grown, but they embraced our family of 1.5 to 8-year-olds, like bringing them to the soup kitchen
Mm.
um, once a month for Saturday lunch, and we would help prepare and serve the dinner and then clean up. So I remember many days like my littlest one falling asleep on my shoulder and trying to work, I'm still glad God gave us that opportunity, because I think it
Yeah.
has helped them to be more loving and helping, if you see somebody that needs something, to try and reach out and help them.
Right. So you were leading by example by actually doing it and instilling it as a habit. Did you talk about it afterwards? Did you process things, or did it just sort of become its own life lesson just by experience?
I'm probably not, excuse me, probably wasn't as good talking about the things at the time. So it was probably more just the example, and it did take me a while to become more open to the people there, but eventually God was softening my heart too,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to be more friendly with them. Because again, kind of being an introvert, that's a little harder for me,
It's hard. Yeah.
um, but I saw God working on me too, you know.
Yeah. And I would venture a guess that your kids embraced the people pretty quickly, because kids seem to just jump in and accept people in a way that adults struggle.
Right. So we were blessed to actually do that 18 years. We did it until the pandemic. So,
Oh,
that
that's
was,
fabulous.
yeah. So I miss it. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for everything, there's a season, right? It's
Right.
prepared
Yeah.
you for all these other things. And
Right.
it's hard to say goodbye to things that we enjoy, but it's always nice to have that space for the
Yeah.
next thing.
God's definitely teaching me that and trying to make it easier for me, those transitions. Yep.
Yeah. Well, this has made me wonder, are there any major life crises, big things that you kind of went through where having this focus really helped you walk through it well?
Mhm.
I don't know, a job loss or illness or something like that. Have you had any experiences like that?
I did have, and sadly to say, I feel like my faith, you know, um, it was back 2013. I was diagnosed with stage 0 DCIS breast cancer. But,
Okay.
so it was the best kind to have because it's, littlest. And I always struggled with stage 0 saying cancer, but that's what, they would
Yeah.
send me all these cancer brochures and everything. And I thought my faith was strong then, but the minute I heard those words, cancer,
Mm,
it was like I felt like I crumbled, in
mm,
my faith. You know, the hardest thing, so I ended up having 2 surgeries because I didn't get enough margin for the first one. And the hardest part was deciding whether to do radiation or not, because the chemo
okay.
doctor thought that it was small enough and caught early enough that I wouldn't need the chemo, or he was okay if I took the drugs or not after, and I opted not to.
Mm,
The radiation doctor was very protocol and said, you need to do this. But something in me, it was the hardest decision I ever made, but I just didn't feel like it was right for me,
mm.
and I'm not one to go against medical protocol or anything, but I praise the Lord that's some 8 years plus later, and He's
Yeah.
kept me safe and healthy. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that always bothers me. So I'm trying to work on that. I think God is working
Mm,
on me slowly, like in big adversities like that.
mhm.
Not to panic or fear, to try to trust Him more.
Yeah.
And
Well, and it sounds to me like the structure of your faith, the anchors, the pillars, whatever we want to call them, that they were solid. It was sort of the external things that you hung on it that kind of fell apart when life did.
right.
Um, and so with that, you were able to hear God's voice and make that
Mhm.
right decision when He directed you. So
Uh,
um, I think I'm actually encouraged by your story because we think that faith always looks strong and perfect. And I don't know that that's true because we are humans in a fallen world.
uh-huh.
And it's what is supporting that faith that matters. And it sounds to me like you had a really good
Mhm.
foundation to your faith there.
Mhm. I thank you for sharing that because it's nice for people to point those things out because I wouldn't necessarily see it that way.
Yeah.
But I think that is true. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been described as, and we've talked about this a little bit, as modeling your life after Jesus's ministry. And I know He came for all of us, but He describes it as the least of these. So,
Mhm.
what does that look like in, I'll say 2023, because that's probably when this will be
Mhm.
airing. What does that look like in a post pandemic, post-ish pandemic world,
Mhm.
how do we love the least of these?
I think it's like reaching out to those in need, like you said, the least of them. So like it could be, you know, so that hopefully we take the focus off of us and ourselves, maybe like our wanting things or, maybe selfishness, thinking of others. So, I mean, that could look like sponsoring a child in a foreign country, like
Mhm.
that somebody you'll never meet until you're in heaven, like just being able to help them get food and education. It could be just going out and talking with a neighbor,
Mhm.
that you see. And like, yeah, just think of a story I did. A neighbor was out with a cat. She's a widow. And I came in the house, but then I felt that nudge I should go out and talk with her. It wasn't on my agenda, like a to-do list, like get my
Right.
things marked off. But I felt God inspired me to go out and talk to her. And she gave me the biggest hug, which was the first time, like she just
Mhm.
embraced me, and, so thinking of, like she lives alone. So, you'd be more lonely. So reach out
Mhm.
to them. Serving at the soup kitchen. I feel like that's
Mhm.
a great way to do that. Just even assisting friends and family, that are older, that need help, that don't have anybody. I think they also fit into that category. Visiting the homebound,
Mhm.
for sure. Just putting others first.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we used to go singing Christmas carols, like at nursing
Mm.
homes, a few
Yeah.
shut-ins, but then with the pandemic again, that stopped.
Right.
Um, so I guess I see it also as relationships, people
Mhm.
over art to do things, even though those are important too. There's
Mhm.
certain things we have to do, but just maybe keeping the focus on others and relationships. And I think it's most important to have like the loving, caring, compassionate heart,
Yeah.
just seeing who, even a smile can change somebody's day. So,
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what I'm hearing you say is that we don't decide who the least of these are.
mm,
God knows who they are. And so it might be that very well dressed woman at the store that we just say, may I hold the door for you?
right.
That might be what she needed that day. And we would never know if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't just stop and think of somebody else first instead of being in a hurry. So
Right. Yes.
yeah, those opportunities that are in front of us. And I'm very task oriented. So that's
Mhm.
always a struggle for me.
I am too, but
I go,
God's working on me.
yes, yes. Funny. In fact, I joke that when I respond to an email, I answer the question and then I go back and I go, thanks for writing. How are you? And I put all the fluffy stuff in after, but it looks first, right?
Right. They'll never know.
That's right. Now they do because I've just announced it. But well, let's go back to your writing for a minute because I know this is your main avenue for encouraging others. Um, but and I know you said you've had your blog for 8 years, and that's your kind of a public journal for processing. But were you always a writer? Was this something you did, from when you were younger, or when your kids were little, or is it more of a recent-ish thing?
It was funny to think about it and reflect on my life when I did my first book launch, where
Mm.
I tried to give some information. And when I did that, I did discover that even at a young age, like thinking maybe like 10, I have a couple construction paper little booklets I made up, of
Yeah.
like hand cursive written, like
Hmm.
little poems, like little thoughts I thought of, and then a few Bible verses even. It was very interesting to see that, like the few Bible verses that, God has always been in my life, and
Yeah.
important to me. Um, so yeah, so that was neat. I had like two of those things. And then it was around my late teens, early 20s that I did start writing a little bit. Um, and yeah, like where I worked at the time, there was a pastor there that we eventually got involved in his church for a while. But, like we would have lunch together and then he would read some of my writings, just to see, because I feel like I need somebody, but like that kind of inspired me. I would put into spiral bound notebooks, some of these, and have them printed up at a printer, like, and gave them, they were called treasured verses, and give them to family and friends at Christmas time, especially, so my writing started more officially then. I also would put some in a church newsletter at the time, but they were a lot shorter than what I write now, but
Okay.
it has grown me, I think, but.
Okay. So just like seeing God in the ordinary, it sort of started and grew. It wasn't like you
Right.
always were, or that you suddenly one day were. It just sort of
Right. Like the different
practice.
stages, yeah. So
Yeah.
then, yes, like once I started my family, then I didn't take as much time to write, of course, being busier. I think I did sporadically. But then it was in 2013. So almost 10 years now, that God used. I was at a Women of Faith conference in our state, and I heard the Christian band Third Day. And well, I'm not musical at all, but their music really touched me, especially like the lyrics of the songs that are most important to me, being a writer. And God used that to get me to join social media, which I had never done. And from social media, especially it was Twitter at the time, I ran into some Christian bloggers that would do writings every so often. And there was this one particular man that did them daily. He did short little, just kind of, had scripture with it, ended with a scripture. So I kind of took his format, and then sharing an ordinary event in life, So it was September of 2014 that he was in Virginia. So we just, were able to correspond via email, and because was not as technical savvy either, but I managed the website. He got me started on it, and it was a test in September 2014 to see if God would provide inspiration for me weekly. And he has. He's been so good and faithful that
You're still
really
going.
started this journey. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, it's never anything I envisioned or anything, but.
Yeah, well, I was going to say writing a blog post every week is one thing, but publishing a book is quite another. And I know you didn't set out to be a published author. So how did God use the blog and turn it into the book?
So it was, like I said, the blog started 2014. And from that, people would mention every now and then, oh, you should write a book, and I'm thinking, I don't know how to do that. I don't have any English degree or, communications or anything. I mean, I'm just an ordinary person. But then in 2019, in a church bulletin, there was an advertisement for an author that was going to do a talk near me. So I went, and at that point, I only had my website. So I gave a website card to the lady who was in charge. And she said, oh, you should wait. And after the talk, you could talk with this Mary. And all I remember is I must have shared about my, the website that I have. And I just remember that she prayed over me. I can't remember what, but I have to believe it was about the writing. I mean, and then, much to my surprise, a few months later, she was emailing me how to write a manuscript for a book. So this was November of 2019. So then I got to thinking more seriously about trying to do it. I mean, she's sending me all this information. And I also figured it would be a little easier for me because if I use my website reflections, I have a basis already. I could not imagine writing a book
from scratch, from zero. Yeah.
Yeah. So God was, I just see God at work, which was never anything I could imagine.
Yeah.
So then I did start, and especially with the pandemic in March of 2020, then, when the shutdown happened, then I had a little bit more time because I couldn't do my usual ministries that I like to do, and little did I know that this Mary would end up publishing my books. I had no idea. She didn't tell me until I think I had everything ready, in a manuscript, that she actually is also helps first-time authors self-publish, and she really felt the Lord wanted her to do it just through her, I think, interactions with me,
Mm-hmm.
and that was such a blessing because otherwise I would never know how to do it.
Yep.
So she does all the hard work and, like all the stuff. I just have to worry about writing more and she's also an editor. So it's been great that, especially the first book, like I was very wordy in my writing. So I've grown a lot. She's helped me. Like I told her with my third book here, I was so excited for her to get it because I could hear her little voice, you don't need that in there. You don't need this.
Yes.
So just funny, I only met her in person that one day. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's so funny.
again, with media and computers, the amazing technology we have, this can
Yes.
happen.
With her soft Texas drawl.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Mhm.
Oh, well, Christine, I have enjoyed this conversation very much. And as we wrap up, there's a couple things. This is my favorite question because I'm a gadget person. But what is your favorite time-saving gadget, system, or tool?
Well, I'm sorry to say I don't really have a lot of gadgets, but for me, what worked, and I don't have a lot of technology, but what I found worked well for me is to have on the computer a weekly schedule
Mhm.
of like the static things by day, Sunday through Saturday or whatever, um, that I print out each week. So the static things are on there just to remind me, and then I can fill in the things that vary, week
Mhm.
to week. So,
So when
so
you say static things, it's like every Tuesday I do laundry, every
right,
Thursday I clean the bathroom, that kind of stuff.
right.
Got it.
Like we're like, church is a certain time because we are
Yeah.
churches in all different times and places. So yeah, it just makes it easier for me to see it there,
Okay.
and then you can also put that like on the refrigerator, like for the family if, you have the different things.
Yeah.
So that's just my
Yeah.
simple thing.
Well, that's good. It takes off your brain from trying to remember
Right.
or yeah. So
Yes.
that's excellent.
Especially as we
Well,
get older.
right. Well, tell us how can people find your blog or find your books?
My blog is, I guess I'll just spell it out, so
Yeah, say
it's
it and then spell it. Yeah.
www.hopetoinspireyou.com. So it's www.hopetoinspireyou.com. So it's all one word.
Excellent.
And my books, I guess I probably didn't mention, my books are actually like three 90-day devotionals. So
Okay.
there's 90 short stories in each of them, that incorporate usually, a personal story and then scripture and, like that. Some might not have a
Mhm.
personal story. Some are more scripture based, because they're just different
Yeah.
things like that. So they are more like 90-day devotionals. Um, my last one is just published finally. And I'm just excited for that one because it has, I was able to go to the Holy Land in February this year.
Oh,
So I wrote about the places there. And it's all, those stories are also on my website where there's, like my website has colored pictures and everything. So people can
mm.
always look there,
Oh, that's
at those.
great.
But yeah, so it was really neat to be in the
So
Holy
impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I will make sure that we have links to all of these things in the show notes so people can
Okay.
find them. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.